Midnight found Ash Creek asleep. The wind kept its own watch. It slipped between cottonwoods. It carried the smell of wet dust and horse sweat. A church bell far off complained once and fell quiet again. The town breathed and did not know it was already changing. Mae Collins knew. She stood behind the broken window of the calico lantern and watched the street. Rain tapped the glass. A lantern burned low on the bar and gave the whiskey a tired glow. She had closed early. Cards still sat in a fan on a table. A hat left behind rested on a chair like a man who lost the nerve to stay. Mae listened for hoofbeats. They came, slow, careful. One horse, then another. She held her breath. 2 shadows crossed the hotel porch across the way. The second shadow lifted a hand. The first shadow did not see. Mae's throat tightened. She knew that lift. A pistol in the dark has a shape a woman learns if she lives alone long enough. The shot sounded small in the rain. The first man fell. The second faded into the alley. Mae pushed through the batwing doors and stepped into the street. Mud took her boot. The air carried cordite and wet cedar and something like sorrow. She knelt by the fallen man. His hat had rolled to the gutter. His shirt was black where it should have been white. Judd Riker stared up at the clouds. Mae pressed her palm to his chest. Blood warmed her fingers. His eyes found her. Sea blue in a desert town. He tried to speak. His mouth moved and failed. She leaned close. "Do not," he breathed. "Do not what? Do not call the sheriff." In Ash Creek, that was the same as prayer. Sheriff Eli Boone had a patient way with truth. He could wait a man into talking. He could wait a woman into silence. Mae's heart kicked once. If Judd wanted no law, then the law would not help him. "You are dying," she said. He blinked. "Not tonight." She looked down the alley. No one. Lamplight shook in the rain. Somewhere a mule stamped and sighed. She slid her arm under Judd's shoulders and lifted. He grunted. A life has weight. A life also has will. He stood with her help. The wind pushed them toward the lantern like a hand that did not like what it had seen. Inside, she barred the door. She blew out the lantern by the window and left the one behind the bar. Warmth gathered in corners and left the center dark. Judd leaned on a chair and breathed. He was big across the shoulders. His coat was torn where the bullet had kissed him. Blood made a slow river to his belt. "Sit," she said. He did. Mae took a razor, a clean rag, and the last of Doc Harlan's bottle from under the bar. The rag shook in her fingers, so she pressed them to the wood until they calmed. Then she cut the shirt away. The wound sat high and mean along his ribs. It was not deep. It wanted attention more than it wanted a grave. "You knew," she said. "You knew he would shoot." Judd looked at the window. Rain lit the glass like a low fire. "I knew someone would," he said. "Someone." He swallowed. His throat worked hard. He lifted his eyes to hers and held. A quiet passed between them, close as breath, old as pain. Mae cleaned the wound. Warm water, whiskey, cloth. His skin jumped under her touch, then settled. He watched her with gratitude that did not need words. She had seen men look at her many ways. This was new. It did not take from her. It gave something back she had not asked for. "You should lie back," she said. "Not yet. Stubborn fool." He smiled once. It made him younger. It made her remember she had been young too. Before the winter, they all stopped calling by name. The door rattled. Mae froze. Judd's hand fell to his sidearm. 2 more rattles. Not wind, not accident. A rhythm a lawman makes when he does not want you to mistake him for a thief. Mae moved to the door. "Who is it?" "Eli Boone," came the voice. "Open up, Miss Collins. Quick now." Judd's jaw set. His eyes told her a story in a second. "Do not, please." She read it like a Bible verse left open by a dying bed. Mae wiped her hands. She let the barbed wire of her voice fall away and left only silk. "The lantern is closed, Sheriff," she said. "You and I both know you are awake," he answered. "A gunshot woke half the town. I saw a man fall. I saw him crawl." Mae glanced back. Judd's breath moved shallow and quiet. He slid the pistol out and set it on the floor behind the chair. He was not a fool. He was a man who had learned the price of wrong movements. "Open the door, Miss Collins." She pulled the latch. The rain shouldered in with Eli Boone. He carried water on his hat and gravity in his eyes. He had a face carved by choices and long days in clean light. He set his boots down careful as if the floor were watching. "Evening," he said. "It is morning," she answered. "Not yet." He looked around. His gaze took the room like a census. Cards, a hat, a single lantern, a rag damp with rust color where it should have been clear. His eyes paused, then moved on. He had that patience. He could see a thing and wait for it to confess itself. "Someone fired on Ash Creek Road," he said. "A man fell. He left blood the color of bad news. He left tracks that ended out front. Now, tell me why the wind brought me here." Mae set the bottle down. She felt the old walls of herself rise. Long practice. Good bricks. But something in her had shifted when Judd looked at her like she was not alone in her skin. She could not stack the walls as high. "I heard a shot," she said. "I stepped out. I saw nothing but rain." Eli studied her. She let him. He did not blink much. Men who do not blink are harder to lie to. He lifted his hand and pointed without looking. "May I?" She nodded. He walked to the backroom door and stopped. He listened. We all have a second sense. The sheriff's sense was time. He could hear how long you had kept a secret by the way a floorboard complained. He turned back to her. "If I look," he said, "am I going to find a man praying for another hour on this earth?" Mae worked her jaw. Her heart had a horse's pace now. She looked past him to the rain. It fell steady. It made a curtain. If you stand behind a curtain long enough, you can learn to speak truth to yourself. She had stood long enough. "He is hurt," she said. Eli's face did not change. "Bring him out." Judd stepped from the shadow before she could answer. He moved with care, but did not hide. He kept his hands where a lawman could read them. His hat was gone. His hair lay wet against his forehead. His eyes were clear. "Evening, Sheriff," he said. Eli's mouth flattened. "Riker, I thought I told you not to come back to my town. I did not come for your town. What then?" Judd glanced at Mae. Something in that glance lifted the temperature of the room. Not heat, so much as a promise that heat could be kind. Mae felt it like a hand near a small fire. "I came for the truth," Judd said. "Tell me whose truth," Eli said. Judd took a breath. The rain answered for a while. Then Judd spoke again. It was not loud. It did not need to be. "Sam Tolliver is alive." Eli's eyes sharpened. Sam Tolliver had been buried in this town 2 summers ago. Pine box, Sunday hymn, dust and sorrow. Men had lifted their hats. Women had taken off their gloves. The church bell had rung 10 times, and then once for luck. "You are mistaken," Eli said. "No," Judd said. "He fired at me tonight." Mae felt a small world tilt. She had poured whiskey for Sam Tolliver on nights when the moon sat low and honest men went home. She had watched him walk out into the dark and had not seen him again. Grief had visited this town with his name. Now the dead wore boots and carried a gun. Eli moved his gaze to Mae again. "You saw this." "I saw a man fall," she said. "I am seeing another man stand. That is all I know." Eli looked at the wound. He nodded once. "Get him bandaged, Miss Collins. Judd, you will stay where I can find you at dawn. If I learn you lied, I will lock you where sunrise cannot reach your eyes." The sheriff turned for the door. Rain bowed to let him pass. He paused with his hand on the frame. "And Miss Collins," he said, "choose the right side of this. Tonight we'll ask it of you." He left them to the hush. Mae let her breath go slow. She cleaned the rag in a basin. She did not look at Judd, and yet she felt him, like a night fire you can find with your back turned. "Why did you come to me?" she asked. "Because you do not scare easy," he said. "And because 2 years ago you poured a man a drink and told him he did not have to be cruel to feel strong." He remembered. Mae looked up. She met his eyes. The room grew smaller, safer, stranger. She stepped close. The wound had stopped weeping. Her hands had stopped shaking. Yet she pressed a fresh cloth to his ribs. His breath feathered her cheek. The rain thinned. A clock somewhere sighed through the last seconds of midnight. But then she whispered, "Tell me what really brought you back." He held her gaze. His answer would change the night. If this story has warmed a quiet corner of your heart, stay close. The dark is softening, and dawn is almost here. Dawn crept over Ash Creek like a secret it wasn't ready to tell. The rain had stopped, but the air still tasted of thunder. Dust steamed off the roofs. Somewhere a rooster cried too early, and then thought better of it. Inside the calico lantern, the fire in the stove whispered instead of burned. Mae poured water into a pot and tried not to look at Judd Riker stretched out on the couch near the wall. He hadn't slept. She could tell by the way his hand kept finding the edge of the revolver on the floor. Men who were hunted always kept part of themselves awake. She carried the pot to the table. "You should eat," she said. Judd opened his eyes. "You always feed strangers this kindly." "Only the ones who bleed on my floor." He smiled, faint and careful. "Then I owe you a floorboard." "Don't flatter yourself. You owe me peace." For a moment, they let the silence breathe. Morning light filtered through the cracked shutters, laying stripes across his chest. His wound had turned from blood red to dark rose, the color of something that might heal if it were allowed. Mae set a bowl of oatmeal before him. He ate slow, respectful, like a man who knew food meant mercy. "Tell me about Tolliver," she said. Judd's spoon paused mid-air. "You sure you want to know?" "After last night, I'm sure of very little. But I want the truth." He leaned back, the chair creaking. His voice came low, as if he were afraid the walls might remember. 2 years ago, I rode with Tolliver's gang. We robbed the freight out of Prescott. Gold for the army payroll. He planned it, I carried it out, but the night after, he shot 2 of our own and ran off with the take. I followed. We fought near Devil's Wash. I thought I killed him. Mae's stomach tightened. "You didn't?" "No. I buried a man who wasn't him. He must have staged the grave." "And now he's back," Judd nodded. "Back, and making sure no one's alive to remember what he did." Mae turned to the window. Outside, the street was waking, a wagon rolling past, a child chasing a tin hoop. Ordinary life, pretending the night hadn't tried to bleed through its seams. "What's he after now?" she asked. "Whatever's left of that gold, and whoever can prove he took it." "That means you." "That means me," Judd said. "And maybe you, if he knows you helped me." Mae's breath caught. "You brought a storm into my bar." "I didn't want to," he said softly, "but you were the only soul I could trust to see me as more than a mistake." His voice had gravel and warmth mixed in it. She hated how it made her want to believe him. "Trust's a rare thing here," she said. "The sheriff seems to think you buried it long ago." Judd's eyes found hers. "Eli Boone's a man of rules. I used to be one of his." She blinked. "You were a deputy." "Before Tolliver turned me," he said. "Before the badge felt heavier than sin." Mae let the words sink in. The outlaw who'd walked into her bar wasn't just a hunted man. He was a man who'd once stood on the right side of a gun and crossed it. That kind of guilt didn't wash off, not even with rain. She moved closer, studying the line of his jaw, the quiet ache in his eyes. "What are you going to do?" "Find him," Judd said. "End it. You'll hang if Boone finds out." He looked at her with something that might have been peace. "I've been hanging for 2 years, Mae, just without the rope." The words landed heavy between them. Outside, the sun cleared the ridge. Light spilled across the floor, touching the revolver by his hand. She bent down, picked it up, and turned it over in her palm. Cold metal, still damp from the night. "Then you'll need this polished," she said, "and I'll need to know how to shoot straight." Judd looked up, startled. "You planning to ride with me? You said Tolliver kills everyone tied to him. Well, last night tied me tight." He stared at her for a long time, something raw flickering in his eyes. Fear, admiration, desire. Maybe all three. "You don't owe me that," he said. "I don't owe you anything," she replied. "But I've been standing still in this town too long." He rose, wincing but steady. "If you come, there's no turning back." "Then don't look behind," she said. For a while, neither spoke. The town's morning sounds drifted through the cracks. A blacksmith's hammer, a dog barking, life pretending it was safe. Then Judd stepped close enough for her to feel the heat of him, the scent of gun oil and rain. His voice dropped to a hush. "If we ride, it'll be before the sun's too high. Tolliver moves faster than guilt." Mae nodded. "I'll be ready." He hesitated. "Mae, thank you." She met his gaze, steady. "Don't thank me yet." He gave her one last look, something between a promise and a warning, then stepped into the morning light. His boots left muddy prints on her floor, but her heart didn't mind the mess. Mae turned to the bar, wiped her hands, and felt the world tilt again. Somewhere, behind the bright face of day, the storm was already rebuilding itself. And as Judd mounted his horse outside, she whispered to the empty room, "Whatever fire this betrayal started, may it burn clean." If this story has stirred a whisper of heat beneath your calm, stay close. The trail winds darker ahead, and the night hasn't finished what it began. The road west of Ash Creek never forgot the rain. It held the water like a wound, shining in shallow pools that mirrored the bruised sky. Mae rode beside Judd, her borrowed horse restless beneath her. The saddle creaked, leather sighing like an old prayer. Every hoofbeat sounded like a heartbeat they couldn't quiet. They rode without talking for a long time. Silence carried its own language. The desert spoke it best. The wind brushed across the dry grass, whispering secrets it had overheard between lovers and ghosts. Mae's hat brim dripped from the leftover rain. She broke the quiet first. "You said Tolliver shot you for the gold." Judd nodded, eyes forward. "And for pride. He thought the world owed him something brighter than the dust. He was wrong. Men like him usually are." Judd gave a tired grin. "You sound like you've known a few." "I ran a saloon," she said. "I've known all of them." A faint smile tugged his mouth, but it didn't last. His eyes searched the horizon, the red cliffs rising out of the mist, the empty stage road twisting toward Devil's Wash. "That's where he'll go," Judd murmured. "He knows I'll follow." "Then you're walking into a trap." "Maybe." He turned toward her. "But I've got something he doesn't." "What's that?" "Someone worth protecting." Mae blinked. Her hands tightened on the reins. The words landed somewhere between her ribs, warm and dangerous. "You don't even know me, Judd." He looked at her like a man seeing light after too long underground. "I know the kind of woman who risks her neck for a bleeding stranger. That's enough." The words hung between them, fragile and hot. Mae looked away. The wind caught her hair and whipped it across her face. When she brushed it back, she realized he was still watching her. She felt something shift, small but certain. The kind of shift that made the air heavier, that made silence hum like the moment before thunder. They stopped at a ridge where the valley spread open like an old map. The desert stretched for miles, dotted with juniper and bone-white rock. Down below, the remnants of an abandoned way station crouched beside a dry creek. Judd dismounted first. "We'll rest here. You'll need your strength." Mae slid down, her legs stiff from the ride. "You sound like you're planning to leave me behind." His mouth curved. "If I were, I wouldn't have brought you this far." He lifted a canteen, handed it to her. Their fingers brushed, a spark under grey daylight. She tried not to notice the warmth that lingered after. He crouched by the ash pit where an old fire had burned. The wind stirred it, carrying the faint smell of smoke. "He's been here," Judd said quietly. Mae knelt beside him. A set of boot prints led toward the creek bed, deep and deliberate. Another set followed, smaller, lighter, a second rider. "Who's the other?" she asked. Judd frowned. "Could be one of his men, or a hostage." Mae studied the prints. The smaller ones wobbled near the end, as if the person had stumbled. Or someone running. Before Judd could answer, the sound of hooves came from the east, faint but fast. He drew his gun, his movements slow and silent. Mae ducked behind a fallen beam. Two riders appeared on the ridge. One carried a rifle slung low. The other, a woman, hair like wheat caught in the wind. Her dress was torn, dust clinging to the hem. Judd's face changed when he saw her. Shock, disbelief, then something colder. "Eleanor," he whispered. Mae's stomach dropped. "You know her?" He nodded once. "She was my wife." The words fell heavy as thunder rolling through dry land. The riders drew closer. Tolliver rode beside Eleanor, his grin sharp as broken glass. He saw Judd raised a lazy hand. "Well, I'll be damned," Tolliver called. "The dead rise easy these days." Eleanor's eyes found Judd's, wide and bright with something between fear and guilt. She tried to speak, but Tolliver's hand gripped her reins. "Stay back, Mae," Judd said quietly. Tolliver's voice carried across the dry wash. "You should have stayed buried, Riker. You and your good intentions." Mae stepped forward, revolver steady. "Let her go," Tolliver laughed. "You've found yourself a saloon angel, Judd. How poetic." Eleanor's voice broke the wind. "Judd, don't. He'll kill you both." "Not if I kill him first," Judd said, and his tone made Mae's heart stumble. He took a step down the slope, the sky behind him burning gold as the sun broke through the clouds. Tolliver swung the rifle toward his chest. Mae's breath caught. Everything slowed. Wind, heart, thought. She raised her revolver. Her hands didn't shake this time. Tolliver fired first. The shot cracked across the valley, echoing through the bones of the earth. Judd dropped behind a rock. Mae fired back, once, twice, until her ears rang. Tolliver's horse reared. Eleanor screamed. Dust rose, swallowed the scene. When it cleared, Tolliver and the woman were gone, hoofprints cutting north toward the canyon. Mae ran to Judd. He was on one knee, breathing hard but unhurt. "She's alive," he said, "and he's using her to bait me deeper." Mae touched his shoulder. "Then we go after them." He looked up at her, something fierce and grateful in his gaze. "You don't scare easy, do you?" She smiled faintly. "Not when the fire's already burning." He rose, holstered his gun, and met her eyes. "Then ride with me, Mae. Whatever this becomes, we face it together." She nodded. "Together." They mounted again. The sun was climbing, the wind shifting west. Behind them, the valley shimmered with the memory of gunfire. Ahead, the canyons waited, red and endless, holding the next turn of fate. And as they rode into the heat, Mae glanced back once at the ashes behind them. She didn't know whether the fire had started from betrayal or love, only that it was far from over. If this story has set a spark in your chest, hold tight to it. The desert has a long memory, and the next horizon hides more than one kind of danger. The canyons swallowed sound like a secret too heavy to share. Walls of red rock rose high on both sides, streaked with shadows and the faint shimmer of heat. Mae rode close behind Judd, her heart pacing faster than her horse. The trail narrowed until it was barely more than a scar between stone. By mid-morning, the sun had turned cruel. Judd pulled his hat lower, scanning the ledges above. "He knows these canyons," he said. "Too well." Mae's hand rested on the revolver at her hip. "You think he's waiting?" "He's always waiting." His tone was flat, but there was an edge in it, a man's memory of how close betrayal feels when it comes from someone who once called you brother. The wind funneled through the gorge, carrying the distant cry of a hawk. Mae's mind replayed the moment she saw Eleanor, the wife he hadn't buried, the ghost who wasn't one. She cleared her throat. "You didn't tell me about her." Judd didn't look back. "Didn't think it mattered. It matters now." He reined in. The horses stopped. Dust floated between them like smoke. Judd turned, the morning light carving his face into hard lines. "Eleanor left before Tolliver did. I came home to an empty house and a note that said I wasn't the man she needed. She was right." Mae stared at him. The words stinging in places she hadn't known were open. "And now she's with the man who ruined your life." He nodded slowly. "Maybe she was with him long before that." Silence. Just wind and breath. The canyon hummed around them, the echo of all things left unsaid. Mae wanted to speak, but couldn't. The ache in Judd's voice wasn't just anger. It was loss, the kind that hollowed a man out from the inside and left him walking with ghosts. Then came the sound, faint, metallic. A bullet clink against rock. Judd shoved Mae down behind a boulder just as the first shot rang out. It split the air, hitting the stone inches from where she'd been. Chips of rock stung her cheek. "Stay low," he hissed. She crawled beside him, dust choking her lungs. Above, two silhouettes shifted on the ridge, one with a rifle, one smaller, blurred by the sun. "Tolliver," Judd muttered. "He's not alone." The rifle barked again. Judd fired back. The report echoed off the walls, bouncing in circles until it sounded like a storm of gunfire. Mae covered her ears, heart hammering. When the shooting paused, Judd leaned close. "He's driving us toward the wash. Wants us cornered." "Then we move first." He looked at her. Her eyes were sharp, steady, no fear left in them, only heat and will. He gave a quick nod. "All right. When I fire, ride hard for that bend. Stay right. Don't stop for me." She almost smiled. "Not much of a chance I'd leave you behind." He grinned, quick and reckless. "I'm counting on that." He stood, fired twice, echoes crashing against the cliffs, and Mae bolted. The horse lunged forward, hooves sparking stone. She felt air whip past, smelled the burn of gunpowder. Behind her, Judd's horse thundered close. Then came another shot. Mae heard a cry, not her own. She turned in the saddle. Judd's arm hung limp, crimson darkening his sleeve. "Judd!" He stayed upright, jaw clenched. "Keep going!" She pulled back the reins, spun the horse, and fired toward the ridge. The rifleman ducked. Mae spurred her horse uphill, rage replacing fear. She fired again, the crack cutting through the canyon like lightning. The shooter fell back, rifle tumbling. Judd reached her, pale but breathing. "You shouldn't have... I told you I don't leave people behind." He swayed, hand pressed to his shoulder. "You saved my hide." "Looks like we're even," she said, forcing a grin she didn't feel. They rode until the canyon widened and the sound of water reached them. A small creek cutting through red stone. Mae slid off her horse, guided Judd down beside the bank. She tore the sleeve from her blouse, pressing it to the wound. "You'll live," she said, "but you'll need rest." He tried to smile. "You're good at this." "Keeping men alive?" "No. Pretending you're not scared." Her hands slowed. She met his eyes. "Maybe I am, but fear's lighter when it's shared." Something softened in him then. The hard lines of his face eased. He reached up, touched her wrist, gentle, uncertain. "You remind me there's still good left in this world," he whispered. Mae swallowed, the desert heat pressing close. "Don't go making me your salvation, cowboy," he smiled faintly. "Too late for that." The air between them changed, not loud, not sudden, just real. She could feel the pull like the tide, slow and unstoppable. His eyes fell to her lips, and for a heartbeat the world forgot its noise. Then, somewhere beyond the canyon, a woman's voice echoed, "Judd!" Mae froze. The sound came again, closer, desperate, trembling. "Judd, help me!" It was Eleanor. Judd stiffened, blood forgotten. He stood, searching the canyon rim. "She's alive," he said, voice raw. Mae rose too, heart twisting. "Or she's bait." "Doesn't matter," Judd said. "I can't let him have her." Mae's jaw tightened. She wanted to tell him not to go, that some ghosts weren't meant to be saved. But she saw the fire in his eyes, the old vow he couldn't bury. She holstered her gun. "Then I'm coming with you." He looked at her, torn between gratitude and regret. "Mae, this isn't your fight. It became mine the moment you bled on my floor." For a moment he just stared at her, then nodded once. "Then let's end this." They mounted again, riding toward the sound of the voice, into the narrowing canyon where the sun didn't reach and the wind carried whispers of the past, the kind of place where love and betrayal shared the same echo. If this story has kept your heart beating beneath the desert wind, stay close. The storm ahead burns hotter than the sun itself. The canyon thinned into a shadowed throat of rock and sand. By the time Judd and Mae reached its end, the sun was falling, bleeding red through the cracks above. The air held the sharp scent of sage and gunpowder. Tolliver's calling card. Mae dismounted first. The echo of her boots on stone felt too loud. "Where would he take her?" she asked. Judd scanned the cliffs. "There's an old prospector's camp near the ridge. 2 caves. He'll hole up there. Keeps his back to the wall, just like he used to." She studied him. "You know him too well." "Knowing a man doesn't stop him from killing you," Judd said. "It just makes you slower to shoot." Mae looked away. The wind sighed through the canyon, cool against her face. She didn't know what frightened her more, Tolliver's gun or the tenderness in Judd's voice when he spoke of mercy. "Rest a moment," she said softly. "You're still bleeding." "I've bled worse." "And lived?" He smiled, tired, crooked. "Barely." She reached into the saddlebag, pulled out a small flask. "Then drink this anyway." He took it, their fingers brushing. The heat that passed between them was more than firewater. Mae turned before he could see her cheeks flush. The desert had its own kind of intimacy, not built from words, but from silence that asked to be trusted. They climbed higher on foot. The path wound through tall rocks, narrowing into a pass no wider than a man's shoulders. When they reached the top, the world opened again, a hollow where the canyon met the sky. And there, in the glow of a small fire, Tolliver waited. His hat cast a long shadow over his grin, the rifle rested across his knees, the flames licked gold across the metal. Beside him, Eleanor sat bound to a post, her face pale under the light. "Well," Tolliver drawled, "if it isn't my old deputy come to haunt me." And he brought company. Judd stepped forward. "Let her go, Sam." "Still a man of principles, huh? That's what got you shot last time." Mae leveled her revolver. "Drop the rifle." Tolliver laughed, deep and easy. "You must be the barkeep. Brave thing, walking into a man's last stand." Eleanor stirred, her eyes finding Judd's. "Don't. He's wired the ridge." "Dynamite." Tolliver struck her across the face before she could finish. The crack echoed like thunder off the stone. Judd's gun was up before Mae could breathe. "Touch her again and I'll—" "You'll what?" Tolliver said. "Kill me? Then you'll never learn who sold you out." Mae's stomach tightened. "What do you mean?" Tolliver smirked. "You think she's innocent?" He nodded toward Eleanor. "She helped me plan that gold job, convinced me Judd was too soft to do what had to be done, said he'd break if blood spilled. She was right. You did." Judd's jaw clenched. "You're lying." Eleanor's tears glistened in the firelight. "I wanted us safe, Judd. I thought he'd let you live if you ran." "By helping him?" Judd's voice was low, breaking apart. "By burying me alive?" Tolliver rose slowly, rifle glinting. "Touching reunion. Let me end it proper." Mae's finger tightened on the trigger, but Judd's hand shot out, stopping her. "No," he whispered. "He wants crossfire. He's sitting on the detonator." Tolliver grinned wider. "Still clever. Shame it won't save you." He raised the rifle, and in that instant Eleanor moved. She threw herself against his arm. The shot went wild, sparking against stone. Judd fired once. Tolliver staggered back, hit the ridge's edge. The rifle fell. Then his hand slipped, catching the detonator cord. The explosion rolled through the canyon like a beast waking from sleep. Fire leapt skyward. The ground cracked beneath them. "Mae, move!" Judd shouted. He grabbed her arm, dragging her down as the ridge shattered. Dust and flame swallowed the night. Eleanor screamed. The sound ripped through Mae's chest. When the dust settled, half the camp was gone. Tolliver's body lay at the bottom of the ravine, still. Eleanor sat against the post, breathing shallow. Her eyes found Judd again, full of regret. "I didn't mean for it to end this way," she whispered. "It always ends this way," Judd said softly. She reached for him, but he didn't move. Then her hand fell. The breath left her like wind dying after a storm. Mae turned away, eyes burning. Judd crouched beside his wife's body, silent. The fire crackled between them, the only sound left. After a long while, Mae spoke. "You couldn't have saved her." Judd didn't answer. He just stared at the flames. "Maybe not, but I could have forgiven her." Mae touched his shoulder. "Then do it now." He looked up, eyes red from smoke and sorrow. "And if I can't?" "Then let the fire do it for you," she said. "Let it burn what you can't carry." He watched her in the flickering light, the dust on her cheeks, the steadiness in her voice. In that look, something changed. Not the fast kind of hunger that comes and goes, the slow, deep kind that feels like coming home. He took her hand, rough and trembling. "You should have stayed in Ash Creek." She smiled faintly. "I never liked quiet towns." The night settled. The canyon's fire burned low. The smell of smoke and ash wrapped around them, but for the first time, it didn't feel like death. It felt like release. Mae leaned against him. His arm came around her, not out of need, but out of something softer, something human. For a long moment, they just breathed. No past, no law. Only the rhythm of two hearts learning the same beat. When the last flame dimmed, Judd whispered, "What now?" Mae's voice was quiet, steady. "Now we ride east, toward something that doesn't hurt." And beneath the first light of dawn, they rose. Two shadows against the glowing dust, carrying nothing but the weight of what they'd survived. If this story has warmed the cold places in your chest, keep listening. The fire that heals is never done burning. They rode until the night surrendered to pale blue. The canyon behind them was still smoldering, a scar against the horizon. Judd didn't look back. Mae did. Once. The smoke curled upward like a prayer that didn't know who to reach. The trail east bent through miles of desert grass. The land was empty except for the wind, the low hum of crickets, and the creak of saddle leather. Mae's fingers brushed the reins, numb from hours of gripping them. Her body ached, but her thoughts ached more. At last, Judd spoke. "You didn't have to stay." She kept her eyes on the trail. "I know. You saw what I've done, what I carry. I've seen worse things in this world, Judd, some of them in my own mirror." He turned his head slightly. "You think killing a man like Tolliver makes me better or worse?" Mae's lips parted, but no words came. The desert didn't answer either. It only stretched wide, offering silence as its wisdom. "You did what you had to," she finally said. "The rest, we'll figure out when the dust settles." He nodded, the motion slow. The horses climbed a ridge where the land fell away into open country, rolling plains that caught the sun's first fire. Dawn painted the sky in soft gold, and for a moment everything felt clean. Judd dismounted. Mae followed. They stood beside their horses, letting the light wash over them. It caught the edge of his jaw, the silver in his hair, the quiet exhaustion that lived behind his eyes. "You ever think," he said, "maybe peace ain't a place? And maybe it's just the space between gunfire." Mae smiled faintly. "Then maybe we're standing in it right now." They built a small fire. Mae poured water into a tin cup, handed it to him. He drank, winced, then let out a slow breath that sounded almost like relief. She studied the wound on his shoulder. "Still bleeding?" "A little." "You patch me up again, and I'll start owing you more than I can pay." She crouched beside him. "You already do." He chuckled softly, then hissed when she tightened the bandage. "You always this gentle when you're being cruel?" "Only when I care," she said. The words escaped before she could stop them. He looked at her, really looked. The sun had lifted enough to set fire to the dust motes between them. His gaze softened, and something unspoken passed through it, an understanding too tender to name. Mae, he murmured. She straightened, but he caught her wrist. His touch wasn't forceful, just sure. You saved my life twice, he said. You don't owe me another word, but I need you to hear this. I don't know what I'd be if you hadn't opened that door. Her voice came small. You'd have died alone. He nodded, and maybe that would have been fair, but it wouldn't have been right. The desert around them held its breath. A hawk circled overhead, wings bright in the light. The fire crackled low, and the warmth reached their hands where they almost touched. Mae spoke first. What happens now, Judd? You can't go back to Ash Creek. Boone will be waiting. I know. So where? He looked toward the horizon, endless and untamed. There's a ranch near Clearwater. Belonged to an old friend. If it's still standing, maybe I can start again. She tilted her head. You mean we? He met her gaze, the faintest smile tugging his lips. If you'll come. Mae didn't answer right away. The thought of another town, another name, another beginning, it scared her in ways she didn't want to admit. But standing in the golden quiet beside him, fear felt smaller than hope. I'll ride as far as the trail lets me, she said. After that, we'll see. He grinned, the first real grin she'd seen on him. That's more promise than I deserve. They packed the fire down, mounted again. As they rode, Mae glanced at him, at the way his shoulders squared despite the wound, at the calm in his voice when he spoke to his horse. He was a man shaped by storms, but somehow she trusted the weather inside him. Hours passed. The world turned warmer. The scent of wild sage filled the air. Then, ahead, a cluster of old cottonwoods broke the horizon, a creek running beneath them, silver in the light. Water, Mae said. Judd nodded. We'll camp there. They reached it by noon. The creek sang softly against the stones, a lullaby only the desert could write. Mae knelt to fill a canteen. The cool water touched her fingers, and something inside her eased. When she turned, Judd was standing close, closer than she'd realized. His hat was off, his hair falling loose. The light touched the edge of his jaw, the faint scar near his temple. You ever get tired of running? She asked. He studied her a long moment. Depends on who's riding beside me. She didn't look away. The creek whispered between them, and the air grew still, the kind of stillness that only comes before something changes. He reached out, brushed a loose strand of hair from her cheek. You should rest, he said softly. Maybe I don't want to, she whispered back. The words hung like heat. His thumb traced the line of her jaw, the touch light as breath. She didn't move. Didn't have to. When he kissed her, it was slow. Cautious at first, then deep enough to forget the noise of the world. The kiss broke, but the closeness didn't. She rested her forehead against his, both of them breathing the same air, the same relief. Outside, the sun was falling again. Firelight flickered off the creek, and for the first time it didn't look like danger. It looked like promise. Judd whispered, We can't stay here long. Mae smiled faintly. Then let's not waste the time we have. And in the quiet between dusk and dark, they let the desert hold them, not as fugitives, but as two hearts finding peace between storms. If this story has touched the quiet ache beneath your heartbeat, stay close. The peace they've found won't last under the rising moon. The night came down heavy and slow, thick with the hum of crickets and the faint crackle of their campfire. The moon rose red above the cottonwoods, swollen and strange, the kind of moon that made even the strong whisper prayers they didn't believe. Mae sat near the fire, hair loose, boots off, the hem of her dress catching the orange light. Judd was a few feet away, cleaning his revolver in silence. The faint metallic clicks filled the spaces between the flames. It should have been peaceful. It wasn't. The quiet between them had changed since the creek. It wasn't distance. It was awareness, raw and unhidden. Every time she moved, she felt his gaze brush her skin like a touch that didn't need hands. She broke the silence first. "You haven't said a word since sunset." He looked up, eyes shadowed under the brim of his hat. "Didn't think I had to." "You don't," she said softly. "But you're thinking too loud." He gave a small laugh, low, rough. "Guess I am." Mae leaned forward, elbows on her knees. "Tell me what's eating at you." He turned the revolver once in his hand before setting it down. "Tolliver's dead. Eleanor's gone. And yet it feels like the past still owns me." "You can't bury ghosts in desert soil," she said. "It never holds the weight." Judd looked into the fire. "Maybe I don't deserve peace, Mae. Maybe men like me are meant to ride until the trail runs out." She reached for a stick, stirred the fire, sending sparks into the night. "Maybe peace isn't something you deserve. Maybe it's something that chooses you when you stop fighting it." He watched her, the firelight painting gold in her eyes. "You sound like you believe that." "I'm trying to." He nodded slowly, then shifted closer. Not enough to touch, but near enough that the warmth between them stopped belonging to the fire. "When I kissed you earlier," he said quietly, "it felt like the first thing I hadn't stolen." Mae's breath caught. She looked up at him, the lines of his face softened by firelight, his eyes gentle in a way that undid her. "Then don't call it stolen. Call it earned." He smiled faintly, but his voice shook. "You sure about this? About me?" "I'm sure about how I feel when you look at me like that," she whispered. "And that's enough for tonight." The distance closed. He reached out, his hand finding her jaw, thumb brushing the corner of her mouth. She didn't flinch. Her hand rose to his chest, feeling the slow, steady thrum beneath his ribs. Their lips met again, slower this time, deeper, the kind of kiss that didn't ask but remembered. The fire crackled, and somewhere in the dark the creek sang on, pretending it wasn't listening. When they broke apart, Judd rested his forehead against hers. "If I wake tomorrow and the world's gone quiet," he murmured, "I think I could live with that." Mae smiled against his lips. "You say that now. But the world never stays quiet for long." He chuckled. "You planning to ruin my peace already?" "Maybe," she said, tracing his collarbone with her fingertips. "But I promise to do it kindly." The moon climbed higher, washing them both in pale red light. They lay close beside the fire, the warmth fading from flame to skin, from distance to closeness. The night held them without judgment. It had seen too many hearts find and lose themselves in the same breath. Long after the fire burned down, Mae woke to the sound of his heartbeat beneath her ear. For the first time in years, it wasn't the sound of running, it was the sound of resting. But peace never stays. Just before dawn, The faintest echo of hoofbeats reached through the stillness, far off, careful. Counting its distance like a hunter in no hurry, Mae lifted her head, eyes narrowing toward the horizon. The eastern light was coming, soft and grey. Judd stirred beside her, hand instinctively reaching for his gun. He met her gaze, both of them listening to the slow rhythm of an approaching fate. "Sheriff Boone," Mae whispered. Judd nodded once. "He's finally caught our trail." The morning wind stirred, carrying the smell of dust and justice. The peace between them began to thin, fragile as smoke before a storm. Mae touched his arm. "What will you do?" He looked toward the sunrise, jaw tight. "Whatever it takes, not to lose what I've found." And as the first light broke across the desert, painting fire over their faces, Mae realized the next battle wasn't with outlaws or ghosts. It was with the world itself. If this story has burned gentle in your heart like the red moon's glow, stay close. Dawn is coming, and so is the reckoning. The first light of morning came sharp and cold. It slipped between the cottonwoods and spread across the clearing where Judd and Mae stood by the creek, faces washed in gold and worry. The sound of distant hooves was closer now, steady, deliberate, inevitable. Judd holstered his gun but didn't mount his horse. His eyes stayed fixed on the ridgeline. "He rides with 2 men," he said quietly. "I can hear the rhythm." Mae gathered her shawl tighter around her shoulders. "You could run." "I've been running for too long," he answered. "And Boone's not the kind of man you outride. He'll follow until one of us stops breathing." The words hung heavy in the cool air. She looked at him, the stubborn line of his jaw, the quiet beneath his voice. "You don't have to face him alone." Judd turned to her. "You've already done more than I had any right to ask." Mae shook her head. "You didn't ask. I chose." The hooves grew louder, dust rising like a ghost of everything they'd tried to leave behind. Judd took a long breath, straightened his shoulders. "Stay behind me. If this goes bad, take my horse and ride east until the land turns green." She smiled faintly. "You still don't know me, do you?" He looked at her for a heartbeat, then nodded once. "No, but I want to." The riders appeared on the ridge, 3 shapes against the dawn. Sheriff Eli Boone led them, his badge catching the sunlight like a blade. His horse picked its way down the slope with the calm of a man who'd done this before, come for the living and left with the dead. Boone stopped 20 paces away, his voice carried clear across the water. "Morning, Riker." "Sheriff," Judd said, tipping his hat. "Word reached me you were headed east. I figured I'd save you the trouble of dying tired." Mae stepped forward, chin high. "You've got no call to kill him, Sheriff. Tolliver's dead. The gold's gone. This should end here." Boone's eyes narrowed. "Miss Collins, I'd be careful about standing between a lawman and his duty." "I'm not between you," she said steadily. "I'm beside him." Boone dismounted, boots striking the earth with the weight of old grudges. "He broke the law, Mae. Rode with killers. Blood's on his hands." "And on yours, maybe," she shot back. "How many men have you buried in the name of order?" Judd touched her arm gently, stepping ahead. "It's all right." Boone's gaze softened just enough to show history. "You were a good man once, Riker. I trusted you. The badge sat right on your chest. It sat heavy, Judd said. Maybe that's what broke me. Boone's jaw flexed. You had a choice. I still do. The sheriff's hand hovered near his holster. Then make it. Mae felt the wind still, every leaf holding its breath. She could taste the iron in the air, the kind that comes just before gunfire. Judd took one slow step forward. I ain't the man you buried, Boone. I've done wrong, I've bled for it, and I'll carry it till I can't. But I won't die proving it. Boone's eyes darkened. Then what do you expect me to do? Let you ride free? No, Judd said softly. Ride with me. See what kind of man I've become before you decide what I deserve. The sheriff studied him. Long, quiet, measuring the space between guilt and grace. Behind him, one of his deputies shifted. The sound of leather creaked like thunder in waiting. Mae's heart pounded. Eli, she said, voice low, don't make this another grave. Boone's gaze flicked to her, then back to Judd. You'd trust me not to shoot you in the back? Judd nodded. Same way you once trusted me to guard yours. Something passed between them. An old kind of respect that time hadn't quite killed. Boone holstered his gun. The deputies stared, uncertain. Boone exhaled. You've got until sundown. After that, if you're still in my county, I'll come for you again. Badge first, bullet second. Judd's shoulders eased. That's fair. The sheriff mounted his horse, gave Mae a look half warning, half pity. The frontier's got long arms, Miss Collins. You ride with a man like him. You carry his sentence too. Mae met his gaze without flinching. Then I'll carry it. Boone tipped his hat, turned his horse, and rode off into the pale horizon. The sound of hooves faded until only the creak remained, soft and endless. Judd stood silent for a long time. Then he looked at her. You just talked a lawman out of killing me. She smiled, small and weary. You can buy me a drink for it when we find the next town. He laughed, a low sound that shook something free inside him. You always this fearless? No, she said, just tired of losing what matters. He stepped close, brushed his knuckles along her jaw. You matter more than you know. Mae's eyes softened. Then stop looking at the horizon like it's all that's left. Judd followed her gaze east. The land rolled open and golden, the promise of a day untouched by blood or memory. For the first time, he didn't see escape. He saw a beginning. He took her hand, fingers rough and warm. Come on, he said. Let's chase something that doesn't end in smoke. And as they rode into the rising light, the desert behind them finally exhaled. The ghosts didn't follow. They had what they came for. Two riders disappeared into the blaze of dawn, carrying hope, like a fragile flame that refused to die. If this story has stirred the dust and quieted your heart all at once, stay close. Evening will fall again, and every piece is tested by its shadow. By sundown, the world had turned gold again. The land east of Ash Creek rolled into soft hills, dotted with mesquite and sage. Mae and Judd rode slow, their horses tired but steady, their silence companionable, the kind that didn't demand words because both hearts already knew what they were saying. They found an old ranch house just before nightfall, half standing, the wind pushing through broken shutters like a sigh. The barn leaned, the fences had fallen, but a spring still whispered through the grass behind the house. Judd swung down first, testing the porch boards with his boot. "Looks like it's been waiting for us," he said. Mae smiled faintly. "Or waiting to fall apart. Same thing sometimes." Inside, the air smelled of dust and forgotten years. Cobwebs lined the rafters, and the hearth was full of ash that had long gone cold. Judd struck a match and lit an old lamp, filling the room with trembling amber light. Mae moved slow, her fingers brushing the edge of a cracked picture frame. A family she didn't know, faces faded, eyes that had once dreamed of permanence. Whose place was this? Judd set his hat down, the firelight carving soft lines across his face. Belonged to a man named Harlan Grant. He was a friend. Fought beside me before the war burned the law out of us. He's long gone now. But this... He looked around. This was where I thought peace might live, once. Mae's gaze lingered on him. "You ever think maybe peace doesn't live in a place, Judd? Maybe it lives in a person?" He looked at her for a long time, then smiled, quiet, honest. "If that's true, I've been riding toward you since the first night." She stepped closer, her voice barely above the fire's whisper. "Then stop riding." The silence that followed was soft but thick, full of what they'd both held back through dust, danger, and loss. The storm that had followed them from the desert now burned only in their eyes. Judd reached for her hand, calloused fingers brushing against hers. "Mae!" But before the word could finish, thunder cracked in the distance. The window shuddered in its frame. A flash of lightning tore the dark sky in half. Mae blinked. "Another storm?" Judd's eyes narrowed. "No, that wasn't thunder." The second shot came through the window, splintering glass, shattering the lamp. The light died. Darkness took the room whole. "Down!" Judd hissed. He pulled her to the floor, his body covering hers as another shot buried itself in the wall, the smell of gunpowder mixed with rain drifting through the broken panes. Mae's heart hammered. "Who?" "Boone's deputies," Judd said, voice low and bitter. "He gave me till sundown." It's sundown. She could hear the horses outside, the crunch of boots in wet dirt. 3 men, maybe 4. She felt the tremor of fear run through her, but didn't let it reach her voice. "What do we do?" Judd's hand found hers in the dark. "We make our stand." They crawled behind the hearth. Judd reloaded with quick, quiet hands. "You remember what I taught you?" Mae nodded. "Aim where the sound comes from. Breathe before you pull." He smiled, even in the dark. "That's my girl." The front door burst open, a shotgun blast blowing the hinges apart. Mae raised her revolver, fired once. A cry followed, then silence. Judd leaned out, fired twice more, measured, precise. The night became a blur of flashes, smoke and rain. The room filled with dust and echoes. One by one, the sounds outside faltered, fell away. Then, nothing. Mae's hands trembled around the gun. "Is it over?" Judd stood slowly, breathing hard. For now. They stepped outside. The rain was falling harder, washing blood into the mud. 2 bodies lay near the fence. The 3rd horse had bolted. Judd looked up at the sky, grey and endless, full of the storm's mercy and its curse. "He gave me until sundown," he said quietly, "and I wasted it." Mae turned to him, her voice firm. "No, you used it. You fought to live." He shook his head. "Boone won't stop now. He'll come himself next time." "Then we keep riding," she said. He looked at her, really looked, and the defiance in her eyes nearly broke him. "Mae, every mile I go drags the law behind me. You deserve a quiet life." Her jaw tightened. "Don't you dare tell me what I deserve. You think I want quiet? I want truth. I want a life that means something, even if it's brief, even if it burns." Judd's breath caught. "You talk like the desert." "Maybe that's why you found me there." The rain softened, turning silver under the moon. Judd reached up, brushed the wet hair from her face. His thumb traced her cheek, her lips. "You could still walk away," he whispered. "I did once," she said. "I'm not making that mistake again." He kissed her, slow, desperate, grateful. The kind of kiss that happens when both people know tomorrow might not come, and that tonight must be enough. Rain soaked through his shirt, through her dress, down their faces like the desert's baptism. When they finally pulled apart, the fire had gone out inside the house, and only the stormlight lit their faces. Judd rested his forehead against hers. "Boone will ride at first light," he said. Mae's voice was calm. "Then so will we." He nodded. "Where to?" She smiled softly. "Wherever the rain ends." He took her hand. "Then we'll chase it till it does." The wind rose again, carrying thunder over the plains. But this time, neither of them flinched. They had learned that storms don't always come to destroy. Sometimes they come to cleanse what's left. And beneath that wild, weeping sky, Mae Collins and Judd Riker stood side by side. 2 souls who'd burned through betrayal, loss, and blood to find the faint, stubborn light still flickering inside them both. If this story has carried your heart through the storm and left it burning warm in the rain, stay close. The dawn is near, and redemption waits on the horizon. Morning came quiet, a pale, breathless light spreading across the drenched plains. The storm had passed, but its echo still trembled in the puddles, in the scent of wet dust and gun smoke. Mae and Judd stood outside the ruined ranch, their horses saddled, the horizon silver with promise and threat. Neither spoke at first. Words felt too heavy for what waited beyond the hills. Finally, Mae broke the silence. "He'll come soon." Judd nodded, tightening the cinch on his saddle. "Boone always keeps his word. You could still ride north." "Cross the border." He looked at her, the curve of her jaw, the defiance in her eyes. "And leave you to answer for me? I've handled worse men than Eli Boone." Judd smiled softly. "No, Mae. You've handled men who thought they were worse." The wind shifted. Distant hooves rolled like thunder through the damp air. 3 riders again, slower this time, deliberate. The law was coming with daylight on its side. Mae drew a breath that steadied her heart. "Then let's finish it." Judd turned toward her, the edges of his voice low and warm. "If this goes wrong—" "It won't," she interrupted. "Not this time." The riders appeared over the ridge, their silhouettes sharp against the rising sun. Boone in front. His badge caught the light, flaring gold for a moment before the clouds dimmed it. He halted 10 paces away. "Riker," Boone called, "I told you what would happen if you were still in my county." Judd stepped forward. "You did. And here I am." Boone dismounted, boots sinking into the mud. "You're out of chances." Mae moved beside Judd. "And you're out of reasons." Boone's eyes flicked to her. "Miss Collins, you really want to die for him?" Her voice was steady. "No, I want to live with him. Big difference." Boone studied them. The woman standing in rain-soaked leather, the man beside her with his hand near his gun, but not on it. Something changed in the sheriff's face. Weariness crept in, the kind born from too many graves and too few second chances. He exhaled, almost to himself. "You think you can outrun what you've done, Riker?" Judd shook his head. "No, but maybe I can outlive it by making it right." "How?" Boone asked. "By building something instead of burning it," Judd said. "By putting my hands to soil instead of a trigger. You can shoot me, Eli. Hang me if it makes the world easier to sleep in. But I swear to you, all I want now is a life worth the forgiveness she already gave me." The sheriff's jaw tightened. For a long moment, only the wind spoke. Then Boone looked at Mae, at the steadiness in her eyes, the quiet fire that refused to bend. "You trust him?" he asked her. "I do. Even knowing what he's done, I trust what he's become." Boone's gaze lingered a second longer, then softened. He holstered his gun. "Then go," he said. "Go, before I remember what my badge means." Judd blinked. "You'd let us walk?" Boone turned his horse. "You're not walking. You're starting over. Don't make me regret it." Mae's breath caught. "Thank you, Sheriff." He didn't answer. He simply tipped his hat, rain dripping from the brim, and rode back into the mist with his men behind him. The sound of their hooves faded until it was part of the wind. For a long time, neither Mae nor Judd moved. The world seemed to hold still, a rare, merciful stillness. Then Mae smiled, slow and tired. "Well, looks like you got your piece after all." Judd's voice was rough with wonder. "No, Mae. I found it." He reached for her hand, threading his fingers through hers. "You're what peace looks like when the dust finally settles." She leaned against him, head on his shoulder. "And you're what forgiveness sounds like when it finally speaks." They stood there a while, watching the sun push through the clouds. The air was cool and clean, the scent of rain clinging to the earth. A hawk circled overhead, its shadow stretching long across the wet ground. Mae looked toward the horizon, a line of light breaking the distance. "Where do we go now?" Judd smiled faintly. "Anywhere the rain doesn't follow." She chuckled, the sound soft and alive. "Then we'd better keep riding." He mounted his horse and offered her a hand. She took it, swung up behind him, and the two rode east, into the gold morning that waited like a promise. The wind trailed behind them, carrying the last echo of their story. Two souls who had burned through betrayal, found love in the ruin, and learned that sometimes redemption isn't a place you reach. It's a person you find. The rain ended, and for the first time, they didn't look back. If this story has touched the tender place in your heart, where forgiveness meets firelight. Let your light stay with us. Comment, share and subscribe so this Western flame keeps burning for you.